A ton of late-breaking NBA news, and we're going to do our best to walk you through every last item today to make sure you can get ahead of the field. I'm Chris Spags, joined by one of the smartest men in NBA DFS, who is not going to vomit on camera today because he is a professional. Fast Eddie Fear. How are you doing, Eddie?
I'm doing well, though I make no promises about the non-regurgitation on today's show, but I'll try to keep my streak of not throwing up on shows intact at about 500. But
all you can do is try your best.
Yeah.
That's all we ask for here at awesemo.com.
Yeah.
Before we get into everything, because of all this news and because there's a pretty great article right now on three of the main chalk plays and their probability of success with Wayne Ellington, Terry Rozier, and Derrick Rose from Awesemo, top player in the world, go use that promo code live before lock. It's right there on the screen. Go sign up on awesemo.com. You get ownership projections, rankings from Awesemo, and a lot of premium content, including articles from Awesemo, and this man right here, Fast Eddie Fear's rankings. So go sign up now. Now's the time to do it on a slate with a bunch of news where you can help yourself actually get ahead of people out there who are not paying attention. That's the goal. Be smarter than everybody. Go sign up, promo code live before lock. Eddie, take us through the main news items. We got some questionable Victor Oladipo. Let's talk about that up front.
Yeah, first shout out. Last night was a great day to be a member here. I believe all using our tools and rankings and stuff. We had 3 or 4 people with 4-digit and 5-digit scores. It's Andy, G Funk era got a big hit, and obviously the highlight of the day was straight up No Chaser, who I don't know if you know this. I didn't see you during the celebratory period, but took down the 180 on DK for $100,000.
Oh, wow. Hey, congratulations! Yeah, round of applause.
100K, you get a special shout out whenever you hit the 6th digit, without a doubt. So last night was a whole lot of fun. Things went, I think, about as we expected. There were different, but the calls we made on Giannis, TJ Warren worked out exceptionally well, which was something we talked about over the show, and so that was exceptionally fun. It's just about my favorite thing when you're getting to sitting there and watching people posting the screenshots and hold on, I gotta go. My wife is crying. She's so happy, and the whole it's very good time. So. Was a good day. Membership has its privileges. So, I kind of like Tyreke Evans anyway. Like, his price was just too high because the minutes weren't there. He was literally playing about half the minutes he was playing last year. A little more than that. But he was repeatedly, with Memphis, getting himself into the low 30s in minutes and has always been a very productive fantasy guy and someone who, when he has the reins, is really, really good. Not unlike Oladipo himself, where he was, a more supplemental player and is playing behind Westbrook or playing behind Vooch or playing behind whomever else, suffers because the usage comes down, and it's that way with everyone, but does possess a real upside to be a fantasy monster, given enough time. Tyreke can't do as much defensively, but offensively is still an incredibly good player who I expect to go sort of under-owned today. With Oladipo going out, he'll get talked up a lot, but his ownership will end up being still, interesting compared to Wayne Ellington and Tyler Johnson and Terry Rozier when you're talking about DraftKings. So I kind of liked him anyway. He had 2 35-point games earlier in the season, in the first week to 10 days of the season, and since then has been getting between 16 and 22 minutes is the low and the high, and most days, under 20 minutes. It's generally giving you a fantasy point a minute. Sometimes a little more than that was giving you 20, 22, 24 fantasy points. And is capable of being a 2 fantasy point a minute guy. So if you take him and throw him in there without Oladipo, the uncertainty here for me is exactly how many minutes he gets. Now, he's going to be a stellar play regardless. Yes, I think you massively overweight the field on him. He's going to be similarly owned to those other guys and is in a situation where he's not sharing as much. Wayne Ellington can go out, play 30 minutes, and give you 9 fantasy points. Last game he was really good. He made 6 3-pointers. And that's what he does. He's very good at it, but does not do a butt-ton else. And obviously he's a little cheaper than Tyreke Evans we're talking about here, but I would project him higher than almost all these other guys. I would actually project him higher than all these other guys. Even Tyler Johnson has been in spots where Dragic is out and goes out and gets 28 or 32 minutes and still has 17 fantasy points. That's going to be really hard for Reek to do because he's just not going to have to share as much. Wayne Ellington, just deals with the fact that you may get another 27-shot performance out of Josh Richardson without Dragic. Or you may get another near triple-double with blocks out of Hassan Whiteside and then doesn't get his 10 shots of which he makes 6 from 3. Same thing with Tyler Johnson, who just doesn't quite carry as much of a point per minute upside. So, long story short, in the event we get Oladipo news, I think that's an 8 o'clock game. So, I think it is very smart to make sure you have room in your lineup right now for Tyreke Evans. You don't have to have Tyreke in there because he's a little dicey if Oladipo plays, who I would think is still probably on the north side of 50-50. FanDuel, perfectly fine to run him out there at, say, $4,500. And DK, make sure you have a plan to get him in. If you're playing 1-2 DK lineups, have a plan like, here's where I'm going to put Tyreke. Like, figure it out right now, switch to it, be ready to do it. Because that news may very possibly come between 7 and 8. I would expect it to. I imagine you're going to get a game time decision update in about 30 minutes, and then you'll get a real update probably after 7. Could be a hair before 7, so be ready for those fastest finger contests. But the other thing I want to say is have some exposure to other guys on the Pacers. Like, Tyreke certainly is the easiest one. He's the cheapest one. It's real clear how he just sort of slots in there. Quite possibly gets the start. I don't think they want to start Kojo next to Collison. I don't think they want to go a couple other ways. But there is a chance Tyreke isn't the guy. There's a chance Nate McMillan, who clearly does not see the value. And again, they're paying Tyreke $15 million a year or whatever. And it's just not putting him out there. He's getting the 4th most guard minutes on this team. So it's not impossible Nate McMillan starts Edmund Sumner at the 2. I don't think that happens, but I wouldn't fall out of my chair if I saw it. So, I have some lingering concern about the usage. The upside is still so massive that I probably just windmill slime it anyway. I would have, were I playing 150 tonight, very near that much Tyreke Evans. Just because even if, the odds his usage doesn't increase at all if Oladipo out seems really small. Like, maybe he only goes up to 23 minutes. But even there, 4,100, 4,500, I'm okay. I'm fine with that plan. And there's obviously just, massive upside. But I didn't mind Miles Turner tonight anyway. He is a very up and down play, but has tended to get a lot of minutes against Whiteside in the past and is a very frenetic play. The last time they went out against each other, Miles Turner just tore him up and ended up Whiteside getting pulled early this was early last year, I can't remember, November, December of last year. They went out there and Turner was making threes and doing all the things you can do, and you ended up with Miles Turner playing 30 minutes and having 50 fantasy points, give or take 5, and Hassan Whiteside playing 22, 23 minutes at a time when he had been playing more. This was before he totally fell out of favor there. So that's something that can happen, and that brings us to Whiteside. Whiteside is, again, I can really see the merit of playing and really see the merit of not playing. The merit of not playing is he's coming off a absolutely preposterous 70, 80 point whatever the hell game, and is going to be fairly popular, and the matchup is on its face exceptional. You don't worry about what's going on down there. But, it is to me, sort of doubly... Like, the 3 reasons not to play him would be as follows. 1, he's going to be much more popular than he's... I guess there's 4. 1, he's going to be more popular than he's been in a while. 2, he's more expensive than he's been in a while. 3, Dragic being out adds to his delta. It adds to his level of uncertainty. His production in general does come up, but his ceiling and floor become much more separated. Like, there are just real ways it turns into a Hassan Whiteside game, and ways it doesn't, and then you combine that with playing against Miles Turner. The last time they played... Turner spaced him out, and, Whiteside wasn't doing a great job of defending. We just saw not that long ago they chalked it up to the knee, and I'm sure it had something to do with the knee, but he was also not covering well on defense and not enthused, and I think that had a lot to do with him getting yanked as early as he did in that game, 3 games back. So just sort of the combination of those uncertainties and the presence of a lot of other good centers. Like, you're looking at other pretty massive spots from Karl Anthony Towns, in theory, and Nikola Jokic, in theory, in similar price ranges. So, it's a really interesting spot. That's a lot to talk to not come away with a strong Hassan Whiteside take.
So we didn't talk about Hassan Whiteside. I was all over him the other day, and I should have put a stronger take out there. I had it in my Switch and Hedge article, which you should be reading if you're watching these streams. But I didn't come out in defense. So the reason I would play Whiteside tonight, and the reason I think your early season reference last year to the matchup that with Turner where he played better, that was when the Pacers were running. They ran for the first month and a half last year, and then he slowed their pace down to a crawl. The game where the pace was a normal Whiteside pace, he put up 45 fantasy points. I think this is a matchup, again, they're playing very slow pace. Maybe it changes if Oladipo's out. I don't see why it would. But I think this is more playing into Whiteside's hands. And our ownership isn't that crazy on him. On DraftKings, we have him under 10% right now. I think he actually might go under-owned for a guy who's coming off of a 70-point game, which is rare, I think, in DFS.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I would not have none. And I'm a guy who likes being like, this guy will be somewhat popular. I can see a downside. I'm just going to let it go, which has worked out for me, most of the time that I've made that call this year. But I wouldn't do that here because there is a real chance he's the highest scoring center. And while there is a floor, the price hasn't gotten that out of control. And Dragic being out again, it'll be interesting to see how that affects the ownership. I think Dragic being out keeps him pretty much in there. But I want to say, I think you can play Corey Joseph now with some degree of confidence and feel a little better about it. I think you can be pretty confident playing Darren Collison. I think you can be pretty confident playing Bojan Bogdanovic in tournaments who you now have to... I mean, Oladipo takes 20 to 24 shots a game. That's a lot of shots and a lot of time to go around. So Reek is not going to pick up all of that. I think you can play $4,800 Thad Young, who always has a tournament upside at that price because he can pick up 5 steals. He's an excellent steals guy. He's one of the best steals guys at power forward in the game. He's really probably he's in that Anthony Davis category when it comes to steals. And Miles Turner and Domantas Sabonis. So all these guys become more attractive tournament plays. So I would say, since we have some advanced time to look at this, with whatever industry you can, definitely consider getting some more significant exposure to the other Pacers. But plan one, have a Tyreek Evans plan. Oh shit, Oladipo's out. Here's how I'm getting much more exposure to Tyreek Evans. I think you want to be over the field. I think due to the fact that Oladipo is only questionable, hopefully you get this news at 6:50 and you only end up with 12% Tyreek, and that can just win an evening for you there. We just did this with TJ Warren, where we were like, TJ Warren's $4,100. We get this, and then we're just like, let's slam TJ Warren. And, my 2 pieces of chalk for the day that were my favorite value guys on DraftKings were $3,800 Pat Beverly and $4,100 TJ Warren. And TJ Warren got called out at, I don't remember exactly what time, but not that long before lock. And I went, yeah, I really like this guy. So did Josh, who had already mentioned him previously in the show. Shout out to the estimable Josh Engelman there. But, yeah, and people loaded him in there. He's 19% owned, and he went off and had 30 in the first half and 40-something in the game. And people played him in cash where, Beverly was 60-70% owned, and TJ Warren was 40% owned. And just that one move made us a giant pile of money. So I like the fact that we still have only a questionable on Reek. On FanDuel, I think it's absolutely fine to slam in some Tyreek Evans. And on DK, have a plan.
Yeah, I think that does make sense. And I think right now, our guy Nixon in the premium Slack mentioned Depot's warming up right now, so hopefully we'll know soon whether this knee is going to hamper him enough to keep him out or not.
I appreciate that. I'm just redoing the rankings real quick on the Pacers, and then I'm going to post these, so we will have that.
Okay. I guess the last guy to talk about, who I think you didn't mention, or if you did, I didn't hear it. Got to get the swin asking about Bojan. Bojan, obviously, another guy on the Pacers side who's mostly forgotten. Not a guy I would want to go to. I would actually prefer going to Sabonis. I'm already playing a ton of Sabonis anyway because he's been getting fourth quarter minutes alongside everybody instead of being taken off, which I think bodes well for him in this matchup. But any Bojan interest for you if Oladipo were to miss, I guess?
Yes, I think some level of Bojan exposure is appropriate. I did mention him in my first run through there. But yeah, he's just a guy who's going to be no problem. It's a guy who's going to be very, very scoring dependent, and with the knowledge that I apologize, he's very, very scoring dependent, and with the knowledge that he can. Sorry.
More opportunity is a good thing for Bojan.
Yeah, it's just simply based
clearly
on...
not the guy to bank on.
Sorry, a lot of... See, damn it, microphone didn't come up for like a full 10 minutes this time. So he's in a position where he just should be taking 3 or 4 more shots. You would think even the minutes potentially trend up a little bit. So, yeah, I like Bojan quite a bit. I probably prefer Turner. I obviously prefer Tyreek a lot more. I probably prefer Turner a little bit more. But after that... probably the Collison, then Bojan. But yeah, moving, who's going to be owned 3% Bojan. This'll news will bring him to 4.5. If you have 10%, that's a fine wedge to put out there, I think.
Yep, that works for me. Let's talk about the other main injury news that we have. It's going to affect Chalk pretty heavily on the slate, and also a guy conveniently who's the same price as Tyreek Evans. So somebody you can maybe pivot off of if we find out later than expected if Oladipo's out. But the Celtics with Kyrie out, Terry Rozier expected to be the Chalk play. Marcus Smart also getting some love from people around the industry, but ownership-wise, not anywhere near what Terry Rozier is. And there are some trickle-down effects. The best guy in general over the last few months has been, or dating back to last year, has been Al Horford. When Kyrie has been out, I don't know that you ever want to bank on Al Horford, but I do have some exposure there. I am kind of with the field on Rozier, even though I was inclined not to be earlier today. I think the spot's hard for me to fade, and I think he's going to be better than people realize. A lot of the doubt on Rozier has put me on Rozier more. But how do you feel about this one, and how's it going to break down?
Yeah, I think he's obviously going to be pretty chalky on DraftKings, depending on what we get out of the Tyreek news. I do still really like him at 4,900. He seems pretty safe for cash, and I do think carries with him a pretty significant upside there. So it is hard for me to, move significantly. I don't think there's a lot of over-analysis to put in here. I'm probably lower on Marcus Smart than other people are. Marcus Smart has already been playing like 26 minutes a game, and whereas I think this gives you 15 extra minutes of Rozier, I think it gives you 2 to 4 extra minutes of Marcus Smart, which, don't get me wrong, Marcus Smart is perfectly sexy at 3,700, 4,100, whatever the hell dollars every night, but this, increases his projection for me by 10%. So with the fact that I think his ownership increases by 50%, I don't think that's necessarily the pivot that I'm looking to make there. I do think it's cute to play Gordon Hayward, Kyrie being gone, increase. I mean, the same argument with Depot out manages for Kyrie being out, where it hasn't been that way all year. He's taken 30 shots in a game a couple times recently. That's obviously pretty exciting and portends some pretty serious upside. So I think you can make arguments for Jaylen Brown and where he's really cheap on DraftKings, and definitely picking up some exposure to Gordon Hayward, gets to return home. Kyrie, there's extra usage there. Has been generally sort of safe, cashy-esque play at his price anyway. I think that's not the craziest thing to do to go there. Derek Favors has smashed his price twice in a row. I don't think he'll smash his price every day this year, but that's another guy to look at. Obviously across the ball there, Tatum disappointed the world. So what should be 8% owned Tatum without Kyrie or 15% owned Tatum without Kyrie is just ends up being lower owned than he should be. Tatum without Kyrie in a vacuum feels pretty good to me. Don't think I want a Horford. Horford and Gobert are two guys who do very significantly limit each other's fantasy upside, so I don't think I'm going to try to buck that trend.
Horford actually had a pretty, because I checked his game logs because I was curious too, because I was wondering how he would fare with Gobert.
Yeah.
Last time he played them last season, he only played one time versus Utah, 44.5 DK points in 34 minutes, which I think actually might have been a game Kyrie was out. Actually, I'm curious about that.
I don't remember that.
Let's see. It was last December.
Let me pull it up.
Kyrie.
I was off the top of my heading here. Last December. Yeah.
Kyrie was active for that.
Yeah, that's the game Rudy Gobert got injured in. He played 1 minute and 49 seconds.
There you go.
So, yeah, he went off there.
You were right.
But, yeah, his games
You're
before
right.
that, 16, 9, 3, and 1, 20. I mean, he's that's like a 33. Like, his last 3 games where Horford played appreciable minutes are like 32, 31, 25, 30. I mean, he's basically giving you around 30 fantasy points plus or minus 5 every time, which is not a dreadful circumstance in which to place yourself. But
not a bad spot to be. But
yeah, I was
probably
about to
not
say I don't recall him ever having a good Gobert game, but I do forget them certainly from time to time. So please do spot check me when it sounds like I'm full of shit.
Yeah, no, you ended up being right, even though it looked on paper that you weren't. That's the most right you can do.
Yeah, it's funny because they did start that game against each other, and Gobert got injured in under 2 minutes. So yep, that happened.
Hey, maybe that'll happen today. Go Al Horford.
Hey, there you go. There's the plan.
Just somebody kneecap Rudy Gobert. No, we're not supporting Tanya Harding moves on any players.
Do not galooly him. That is not cool.
Let's see. What other news do people want us to hit on? Anything good? Derrick Jones entering the lineup again for the Heat. Any concern about how that affects things for you?
Derrick Jones is, I believe I saw updated to out. Am I confused? Or updated to in? He was out and they decided he's actually back in, right?
Yeah, he's back in now.
Okay, and are they saying he is starting? Give me a second here. I've got available to play, but I don't think he's a significant minutes threat. I will phrase it that way. No, it doesn't change anything. I mean, he would be considered a minor downgrade to Olynyk and Winslow, I suppose, to a small amount, but it wouldn't change anything appreciably for me, no.
Okay. And I guess before we take a bunch of questions, again, we prefer thoughtful questions rather than just either ors at this point. We'll do a speed round of either ors towards the end. But if you have good questions, please drop them in chat. We will go through some of them now. Keeping an eye on your YouTube chat as well. But Premium Slack does get first dibs. Drum43 on the Premium Slack asking, what would be a quick rundown of your top plays due to all of the news that's going on right now?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about some guys we haven't discussed who I would have a fair bit of interest in. Joe Ingles is just demonstrably unpriced, especially on FanDuel. 5,700. He has shot, I don't have it in front of me, but he has been shooting like 23% from the field. That's not going to happen. He's an exceptional shooter. That's just small sample size. But if you look over the last 5 games, you get he's 3 for 13 and 2 for 12 and 1 for 5 and etc. Like, he's just not making any baskets. That price is cheap enough that even in a tough matchup at what I consider to be nominal ownership, I'd have some exposure there. I really like Robert Covington, which interestingly enough, someone asked about him. Actually, my next note is I like playing Robert Covington a lot. They tend to move, and this is going to be different this year. You're now dealing with, whenever you talk about, people have asked me today about Embiid splits and Simmons splits, and you're dealing with no Dwight Howard and James Borrego instead of Steve Clifford there. That changes a lot. Like, those two changes really change how this team functions. So it's difficult to do a lot of the carryover from last year. You would like to, because for reference, these teams have played more since March in the regular season than almost any team in the NBA. They played all 4 of their matchups last year, I think, in March and April. So they've literally played March, April, and then already once this year. So they have gotten a tremendous amount of time out there. But long story short, I like Robert Covington. Robert Covington has a freakishly consistent record against, if somebody wants to stat me as this or look this up, he has at least 30 fantasy points, I'm going to say 6 consecutive games against Charlotte. Like, he's been really good. They're like 32, 32, 35, 32, 35. Like, they're fairly consistent.
Yeah.
And
Will Holman has it in the Premium Slack. His last 5 versus Charlotte, and I guess Kemba defense in particular, 31.8, 40, 31.3, 50.8, 45.5.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. I didn't know. I don't have the chat up in front of me. I want to get the rankings in real quick. But the so I had a fair amount of for Covington there. I think the Detroit-Atlanta game is a fun one to stack. I slightly at same price prefer Blake to Drummond. I would project him for 2 or 3 more fantasy points and slightly lower ownership. So I'm a little more inclined towards Blake. Obviously, there's some site dependency there. The FanDuel price on Blake a little sexier. I like running it back with some of the guys. Usually you want to go with the 1 through 3 there. It does not look like a great Amari Spellman. I would stay away from running that back. I think he gets still 10, 12% ownership. And when it gets back down to 3, we've shown that he has an upside. But he was getting 13 fantasy points in 20 minutes for many games in a row previously. Before it just randomly went off last game, and I don't think against this Detroit front court is the spot.
Without Prince in the starting lineup, Prince is back in too, and I think he got up a lot of points when Prince was on the bench at the beginning of that game.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I think that usage is gone now, so I would not go Amari tonight.
Yeah, I'm not doing that, but either Dedmon or Len in tournaments makes some sense for me, believe it or not. Len has had there's a 2015 game with him against Drummond back in his Phoenix days, I seem to recall. That can happen. You'll get him at 3% owned in what looks like a worse matchup than it is. Same thing with Dedmon, who can do it off the bench if you got foul trouble on Len. Both obviously strictly tournaments, but especially at their DK prices, either Bazemore or Prince, I like grabbing one of them if you are playing either Drummond or Griffin. And then Trae Young just has a 50-point upside. Like, you got to get lucky, and he's got to make 3 of his 6 threes and not miss them all, and try to have 5 turnovers, not 11. And the price is a little more. Yeah, the price is a little more equitable on FanDuel. I will say that, but one of the reasons for that is he is one of those guys for where paying twice as much for turnovers really matters. Like, he's averaging, I'd say, about 5 a game, and occasionally gets 8 or 9. That's it's a very Westbrookian thing in that way.
Yeah, I agree with that. Here's a question about a game which I like a lot, the Kings-Minnesota game. Jay Kelly, 13, asking the Premium Slack, is Willie Cauley-Stein hurt by Cat playing away from the basket, or does he just eat Towns up at the paint considering Butler is playing, which means Cat will go full pussy, which I mean is obviously referring to the Cat name, not a derogatory term or anything.
I presume not. We're very forward-thinking here at Awesome.
We try to be.
Yeah, without looking up the specific numbers, I can tell you off the top of my head that Cat has beat the living shit out of Willie Cauley-Stein, who's rarely, if ever, been good against Karl Anthony Towns. He does not take advantage of the matchup. He is one of those guys who is defeatable by size and athleticism, as opposed to guys who have a more nuanced game. Now, Willie's been a little better this year. He's kind of cheap, but he would be my 11th center on the board or something. Like, I really am not into Willie tonight. I would much rather play Towns. So Towns, you're just dealing with does he decide to take a nap for the entire second half again? Does Butler being there just fuck him? Like, there's a lot of ways that don't work, but he has, again, I don't have the numbers in front of him, but he has multiple 25 and 15 games against the Kings. So the matchup is not a concern, to answer your specific question. A couple more takes on that game there. Derrick Rose, again, just demonstrably on the whole too cheap on FanDuel. He's just should be a $7,000 player. He's a $6,000 player. He's going to be chalky. You don't have to play him. You can move off him there. DK, again, there's so many other guys who are looking underpriced that I think those ways are the more obvious ways to pivot. Can you play Evans and Cash even if Depot plays? No, that is not objectively of and by itself a good play. D Rose or Willie Cauley-Stein more points? Right. That's I would have them probably pretty similar, but I would still play Rose and Cash in that situation. But for the ownership, I would play Willie Cauley-Stein in a tournament over Derrick Rose because of the ownership. But other plays in that game, I like Shumpert again. Bogdanovich being back isn't so much of a threat to Hield. It's more of a threat to Shumpert. Those are the minutes that are going to get taken by him. So no Bogdan Bogdanovich today. So certainly think that you can run out Shumpert at 3,700 on both sides. I think that's actually a pretty compelling play. Again, that is strongly correlated with the game staying close. So if you are running out Shumpert in that game, he's better if you are also running out Towns or Butler or some correlation on the other side. Fox is still just a little too cheap on DK, and we are not worried about the price at all. You can certainly play him on FanDuel. There is a big upside there. This is not a backcourt whose defense I'm terribly concerned with at that point. It'll be interesting to see if they shift over. Hield will get the tougher defensive assignment, but still just objectively too cheap. On DK, and I wouldn't, if I was building 150, I'd have 3 or 4 Nemanja Bjelica's. Last game was just an abortion. He only played 20 minutes because he couldn't make a shot, and Bagley came in. And then Bagley, who would negatively correlate with any of the expensive starters, just has the potential to be a fantasy monster in a spot like this. So, let's see, other takes that I haven't had time to throw out yet. Otto Porter Jr. I don't want to go back there again today. Talked about him last game and said, look, this is a guy who could randomly put up 40 in the spot. I think it's good. The ownership won't be there. He went out and did it. Now I expect the ownership to be triple that. I have no particular reason to think that he's going to do 40 again instead of 15 to 20, which is what he did the several games before. So disinclined towards running Otto out there again today. He's still cheap and still can get that upside, but I'm just much bigger fan of making that play at the 5% we got last time rather than the 20% this time. Donovan Mitchell I like a lot on DraftKings just because he's objectively too cheap of a price play at 71. I think Dwight Howard is more of a cash play than a tournament play, but really hard for him to disappoint if he gets around the minutes we expect him to and what should be. I mean, again, this Washington team is impossible to predict because most of the problems are above the players' shoulders and not below, so I can't guarantee anything, but this game seems like it should stay close. So you probably get low to mid 30s minutes out of Dwight Howard, and he's just too cheap for that. I really like Nikola Jokic. Had some commentary in his brief interviews after the last game about how other players on the team had encouraged him to shoot more, and he said he knew he had to shoot more to make the offense better, and that's what you want to hear about him. So had played the Nets twice last year, played in both those games, had 55 and 75, give or take 5 in either one, recalling back both of those games. I like Jared Allen, but does not. This is not a spot that is A, good for him, or B, I expect him to be terribly effective as a defender in this matchup, nor such a deterrent that Jokic doesn't step his game up a little bit. Other guys in that game, Jamal Murray would be my favorite. Like the personal matchup, do think the upside is there. I don't think actually correlates that well with Jokic. This is going to be a slowdown game, so I would play one or the other, but not both of them concurrently. Kemba's too cheap on FanDuel. Has been fine in the matchup previously, 8,600. He's just too cheap on FanDuel. And Marcus Morris, also still way the hell too cheap on FanDuel. And you take Kyrie Out, who was taking 30 shots a game. he's a guy who likes to shoot whenever he gets the time, so $5,100 there, still just too cheap for him. I'll let you know when I got more, but that's what I got on top of my head.
All right, and the news coming in as you were talking, Oladipo is on track to play. Coach McMillan says he got a little banged up, but he should be good to go.
Yeah, it's a knee bruise. Someone reported incorrectly that it was an illness. It's not an illness. It's a knee bruise, knee contusion, whatever. Although I couldn't source it, I went back and watched a bit of the last game and did not actually see a knee bang, but I'm presuming that it was simply a knee-to-a-knee thing, which is something that happens pretty frequently in those games.
Good question from Jason Haskell on the YouTube chat. Would you still lower your ownership on Depot under or over the field with his estimated ownership probably dropping low with some of these concerns?
Well, his ownership will be now down significantly, so I would be more inclined to play him. It's very rare that someone has some uncertainty and then decides to play, and I'm not more a fan of theirs than I was before. It is not what I considered a superlative spot. A knee contusion is one of those things that I'm not thrilled with your first game back. It's just, it swells up a little bit. You are often a bit stiff. The fact that they weren't sure he would play a few hours ago makes me think, maybe there is actually, it's one of the few things where, a knee bruise, lower thigh bruise, I'd have to actually see it, but, I would still want to be overweight the field, which at this point at $9,000 is going to be, 6%, 8%. It's going to be site dependent. Again, priced a little better objectively on FanDuel. But, on the whole for this matchup, I would go back to... they have a number of excellent defenders to throw at him there. Might get 55. Probably gets 45. Maybe just gets 35. But any rankings update? Yeah, let me fire that again there.
Two guys who I think you might have blown past in that Minnesota-Sacramento game. I think people are asking about in both chats. Bjelica, I'm interested in today. I think the revenge narrative is a fun one for this one because I do think Bjelica did leave there with a bit of acrimony. And I'm intrigued too, especially coming off of a game where, again, he had foul trouble and didn't see court time. I think people keep thinking that Bagley's going to take his minutes. If he gets in foul trouble, he is screwed, absolutely. But if he doesn't get in foul trouble, I do think it's a pretty nice Bjelica spot. And he is the lowest owned guy out of all the starters there. And Shula Bula asking about Taj Gibson and cash, which, Eddie, I'll let you answer. But I like Taj a lot. He jumped off the page with my projections. And I think that was true of Shit My Money on the deeper dive as well. Mentioned that. He's been just killing this year lately. And I think another fast-paced game, you could see what he did versus the Lakers. It's a very similar profile in this matchup. So I like Taj again. That could be my play that burns me this week, but I'm heavy on Taj.
Yeah, I like Taj a ton. Your concern is that the minutes come down and he doesn't continue to get the 38, 36 that he's been getting recently. But I think that more likely than not does continue. Having Teague out does actually portend a little better for him, and that's just a lot of time at a reasonably cheap price. So I don't mind Taj in cash. I don't mind Taj in tournaments on a big slate where his ownership is not super exceptional to me.
Any B-Jelly thoughts about Bjelica's return to I guess not his return to Minnesota, but
I think it's a strong tournament play and, should be correlated correctly. Like if you're playing Bjelica, play Butler or Towns if you can. Like you don't have to have them to play Bjelica, but he correlates really strongly with a close game. Don't play him alongside Frank Mason III or Marvin Bagley, and try to play him alongside De'Aaron Fox mostly, and Buddy Hield a fair amount, and the other guys, because again, they have really one of the more trackable trends in the industry is the fact that those guys are really strongly correlated with consistent wins and playing straight through or blowouts. They just have staff that are very strongly listed to each of those.
Here's an interesting question from Garrett Kahn in the YouTube chat. Would you go Taj Gibson or Rozier? It's probably Rozier, but he doesn't have any other Minnesota guys, and he has 2 Sacramento guys.
I would play Rozier in both.
Yeah, I think it's hard to advocate taking Taj over Rozier, but I think he's a viable pivot in the utility spot if you want to get weird. But Rozier is just, I think, a better play overall.
Yeah, I would say that as well.
Let's see. Can you talk a little bit about Nick Batum? He's the last guy in for cash for Chase on the premium Slack right now.
Cash I can't do, my friend. Cash I cannot do. I'm picking up what you're putting down, but... oh my god, all the messages, you people are crazy. I'm picking up what you're putting down, but there's just too much variance there for me. I do think he's a fine tournament play, but give me a site and a dollar amount, and I'll try to advise something that I approve of a little more, because I can't play Nick Batum in cash. Like, he's, I think, a fine tournament play, but there's a very real floor there. He occasionally just disappears. And
him and his 8% usage rate are not the most appealing thing in the world right now.
Yeah, I just can't do it for cash is my answer to your question. I feel your pain. You know, we like him as a player, but he is strictly a tournament guy. He's heavily based on peripherals, which are less trackable than points in general and shots in general. Has big upsides based on multiple things working out. He's fine in this matchup, but yeah, not in cash for me. I can't do it.
Who would be the cash centers you're willing to bank on for DK for C. D'Agostino in the premium slack?
Well, Dwight Howard I like a lot. At 6,000, I think is a strong play. Whiteside at 8,200 is playable in cash. He's just priced very well, though there is more variance than I would like generally with a cash play. I think you could play Paul Millsap in your center position if you wanted to. In cash, it wouldn't bother me. Just 5,100 is too cheap in an excellent matchup. Can't hurt you that much. I think Drummond is playable. That's probably the only guys I really want to play in cash. I like Vooch in tournaments. Obviously, Blake Griffin is playable if you want to put him in center. Embiid has a shot here to put up a number, but his price is still appropriate, at least at this point. I would rather play Ben Simmons, by the way, who has real triple-double upside here. Was not great in this matchup the first time this year, although I do think that was to some degree predicated on. I think that was his 5 for 20 from the field game when they played earlier this year, and in the past has been an exceptional agent against them. So I would much rather play Ben Simmons than... I uploaded the rankings 8 minutes ago. Okay, I'm going back to do again. I really wish anyway this was so inconsistent. I will try that again and wait 10 seconds. But I would rather play Simmons than Embiid in that spot. So, more questions.
Yes. While Eddie tends to the rankings real fast, make sure to throw us a like on YouTube right now. It helps us out a ton. We have 1,154 people watching right now. So please do your part. Just throw us a like. We don't ask you for much. And we're here on a Friday. Eddie's got better things to do. You don't think he's got a life. He's got a wife, a beautiful wife who I met last weekend over Skype. So I can fully testify that Eddie is a fully formed human being. Yeah, so throw us a like.
When I found out about the two of you, I'm going to kill you.
You confronted us on our live stream. We've been having a Zoom-based relationship behind your back, and it's really dramatic.
You're hardly the first one she gets around,
but that's fair. Look, as long as you get to sit in the corner with a cigar, I think that's all.
Cigar? There's no way I can smoke a cigar and balance the camcorder at the same time. There's no way I can do both those things.
It's a Friday show. That makes me happy, Eddie.
It's not possible.
Embiid for a FanDuel GPP. What are your thoughts? Is he too expensive at 11K?
No, he is fine to play in a tournament. He has 70-point game in him. If he decides to do it, he's certainly going to do it. I would rather play $9,700 Ben Simmons. I think there's a greater chance he gets there, but it's going to be a weird scenario where Joel Embiid is not playable in a tournament. And if he costs $13K tonight, I'd be like, he's playable in a tournament, because at $13K, you'd get him at 1%. At $11K, with so many other excellent centers, just looking to get him at, like, I'll guess our FanDuel projections have him at like 8%. That's pretty exciting. You can obviously get 65 out of Joel Embiid. So I do think his ownership will be appropriately balanced by his price. So there's no reason to do that. No reason not to do that if you like him. If he fits in your lineup and you just pick other guys you like and you're like, oh, I have 11.5 left, no issue with you rolling Embiid in there. He's not my favorite point per dollar center on FanDuel. He'd probably be my number 6 or 7 points per dollar, but he has as good of a chance, if not better than anyone, of being the highest scoring center on the slate. And if you like all your other guys, especially on FanDuel with their sort of compartmentalized scoring, no reason you can't do
that. Brandon T asking, is Beal a reasonable pivot off of Oladipo?
Sure. Beal is absolutely fine on both sites. Again, priced much more equitably on DraftKings, but going to be lower owned proportionally on FanDuel for that reason. I legit like Beal in this spot. So, yeah, you have no issue with Beal. A little bit more tournament-y than cash. I think I had him B in cash, A, and if you can't see the rankings now, there's something wrong on your end. I've double-checked that they've been successfully uploaded twice. I'll go check a third time, but it would be very odd that it's not working. But, yeah, no issue with Beal in anything. Not a strong Beal take day for me, but feel free.
Who would you prefer, Beal or Wall?
I would prefer John Wall in this spot. Fairly close. I like the matchup a little bit better for Wall. I like the ownership a little bit better for Wall with positional scarcity, and I think I would slightly rather play John Wall on either site than Brad Beal. FanDuel, I really enjoy the double punt at shooting guard where you can run. Like, I like Shumpert and Ellington as plays there. I think one of them ends up being good. You randomly end up punting the other one, and then you can run, some studs out there depending on which game. Rankings are up and working fine. Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I appreciate that. Yeah, I apologize. Person who is having an issue, I would help you if I could.
Would you go Buddy Hield and Marcus Morris or Gary Harris and Paul Millsap?
Buddy Hield and Marcus Morris. I'll go with the first one barely. Close, but I will go with the former of those two.
I would agree with that. Ben Simmons and Dwight or De'Aaron Fox and Karl Anthony Towns?
I would rather play Ben Simmons and Dwight. I still think Dwight carries an upside. We just haven't to see in a week of playing in this year. There's a pretty good spot for him, and I just think for 6K, assuming we're talking about a DK lineup, I think there's a real chance you get 38 out of him, and that's a pretty impressive number there. And I like Simmons a lot. I think Simmons is really low owned, and I'm not shocked to see a really significant Simmons game here. So.
Would you pay up for Aaron Gordon? He says at shooting guard. I assume he must mean small forward. I'm actually confused by this guy's question. But would you play Aaron Gordon or Donovan Mitchell on DK for cash?
Yeah, I think you're spending it's $400 more for Aaron Gordon. For cash, I would actually play Donovan Mitchell. Pretty close, but especially if that $400 does something for you, or if it doesn't, I think I would still, for cash, prefer Donovan Mitchell. I do think you have a slightly better ceiling spot for Aaron Gordon. I do like him a little bit more than Vooch tonight, who's managed to put up monster. Vooch is going to be a very nice tournament play whenever he hasn't had a big game in a week this whole year, because he's just shown the ability, even in tough spots, to be like, whoops, I scored 60. Like, he just messes around and throws up a 60 burger. So I'm not going to have an issue with him at like 8,000 in tournaments at any point till I see a systemic reason for him not to be able to do it again, and I think he can. Aaron Gordon, I do prefer to Vooch tonight at their various positions. I expect him to be able to get more transition shots, get away from the defense just a little bit better. So I like Aaron Gordon. I would still rather play Donovan Mitchell in cash.
Yeah, I like Aaron Gordon a lot tonight. One thing which jumped out, which is I just added to my stat matchup thing, which if you're a premium member, you can get into Slack now. I'm dropping my matchup sheet, which I use to review during the show and to write my column every day. So go check that out if you are a premium member of awesemo.com. The Wizards are getting dunked on an insanely high amount, which makes sense given the pace and all that and just how defensively lazy they've been. And I think getting dunked on a lot is the only guy in the Magic who fits that criteria is Aaron Gordon. So
more or less. DJ Augustine not likely to throw down a lot of hammer dunks on you.
No, he doesn't have a lot of Spud Webb in his heart, unfortunately. But I just like Aaron Gordon. I think he matches up well.
Spud Webb was the great. He was amazing. That's back when I was a kid. He was doing that stand on the foul line, facing away from the basket, through the leg, bounce off the backboard, dunk shit was excellent.
Any Derrick Rose love people are asking now. I think people might have missed some of the overall takes on that game, but how are you feeling about Rose at this price up?
Yeah, I'm going to go back and pop through the list of games and see if I missed anyone else. I am fine with Derrick Rose on DraftKings and a big fan on FanDuel. You don't have to play him. Like, he's almost a better tournament play on DraftKings, where there are a lot of great other plays, though he's even shooting guard eligible there, but the price is a little higher, so the ownership is a little less onerous. So better cash play on FanDuel. Better tournament play on DraftKings. Perfectly fine to play anywhere, but perfectly fine to let go. You want, without somebody else out, he doesn't become a absolutely must windmill slam guy for me, because the possibility of him putting up like 50, I think, becomes very, very remote at that point. Plus, I still have health and injury concerns with his body holding up, running out a Thibodeau schedule. So there's a number of reasons I can get away from it, but I'm very ambivalent on Derrick Rose. Past that. Nothing else I want to go at this. I mean, you're going to get Jimmy Butler at a really nicely low-owned number again. And again, people are going to play a lot of Towns. People are going to play a lot of Gibson. People are going to play a lot of Rose. Jimmy Butler can give you 55, 60. It costs 8,600 on DK. I'm not afeared of that price. So I like him at what I would expect the ownership to be. I'm curious, what's our projection on him?
On Butler, the projection, hold on one second, I just scrolled away from that. 19%. So he would be lower than everybody besides Taj Gibson on that side.
Yeah. And even Taj isn't going to get close. I think Taj gets 10. 12.
Yeah, I think Taj is going to climb a little more than we have him at right now. We have him at 16%, but I feel like a lot of smart people have been on him, so I think that's going to go up a little for Taj.
Yeah, and again, he's had 2 very good games in a row. He's not going to be good every game, so don't, mistake this for the coin flipping fallacy. If I just flipped 3 heads in a row, it's more likely I flipped tails this time. It isn't. And the minutes are the most demonstrable thing there, but it is still Taj Gibson who can definitely... you have Wiggins and Rose and Butler and Towns out there. He might only take 5 shots and only play 28 minutes. Really wouldn't surprise me if that happened, because he is by far the 5th best offensive player on the team and can just get frozen out. So that number has really come up. If you looked at their last game, I think all the starters took 14 to 18 shots, counting him. It was like 14, 14, 15, 17, 18 or something for the 5 starters. That is more shots than you will generally get out of him, even in 37 minutes there. So for all those reasons, a little bit disinclined towards.
Would you go Tyler Johnson or De'Aaron Fox for FanDuel cash?
I mean, Tyler Johnson costs whatever $100, and De'Aaron Fox costs like $8K on FanDuel. So it's a somewhat confusing question. So raw points, De'Aaron Fox. Which one I would rather play, just sort of as a more heuristic question? Probably rather play Tyler Johnson between those 2 guys in cash.
Would you go Iman Shumpert or Langston Galloway for a FanDuel punt?
Shumpert, easily. Not close for me. I understand that.
Actually, I would go Shumpert too, but I think I'm curious about Reggie Bullock. I think defending his job, he's had a terrible run, and if he's ever gonna have a good game, Atlanta would be the one to have a good game against. So
Des Bryant tore his Achilles practicing.
Yes, he did. Which, as a Cowboys fan, I feel bad about that, but he got paid. Got paid for a couple weeks.
That's the funniest thing ever. Sorry, just like this whole thing about what's he going to do, and he's holding out, and we were talking about what he's going to do forever, and he finally signs with the Saints, which seems like it's got some pretty, sexy upside for him. And, that was anticlimactic. I don't mean to make fun, but that is hilarious how that came down. Sorry, proceed. Oh, boy.
No, who would be your favorite power forward for DK Cash for legal trouble on the premium Slack?
Without price range, just power forward. There's like 50 guys, but let me see if Prince is small forward only. Don't mind Aaron Gordon. Don't mind Blake in cash. I'm trying to keep an eye on the news. I feel like this is a night we're going to get. With the sickness going around, I'm keeping my heads up. Reggie Jackson on FanDuel is an excellent tournament play. I'd stay the hell off him in cash. You better play Derrick Rose for $200 more in cash. But Reggie Jackson in tournaments makes all the sense in the world. Power forwards in cash. I don't mind. That's forward because you can't have Ben Simmons. Okay. Wow, the price has come down quick. All right, so Blake at 10K, and the next most expensive guy is Gordon. Gordon, I don't mind in cash, so he's not someone I'm trying to windmill slam in there. Winslow at 5,600 would be fine. Sarge at 5,000 is still more tournaments for me. Taj at 4,900 I really like. Favors at 4,600 I think is just fine. Thad Young at 4,800. Probably don't want to do in cash. Can't do Bagley in cash. Another guy I really like in tournaments. I don't hate Deadman at 4,300, but again would rather do in tournaments. I don't want to do Spellman. I don't want to do Wancho. We may be done at that point. So that's power forwards and cash for me there. Also, wanted to mention back-to-backs. The Nets play again tomorrow, and the Heat play again tomorrow, I believe. Yes. And the 76ers. Oh, I'm looking at my whole schedule grid. There's a lot. And the Kings and the Wizards. So keep your eye out on those teams. There's quite a bit of back-to-backs, which I should have mentioned at the start of the show. But the Nets play again tomorrow. That's 60. I don't want to play any Nets. The matchup is slow. The defense is better than advertised. Damari Carroll is back, so they're going to run 11 or 12 deep. I don't. If I had to, it'd be LeVert or D'Angelo Russell or Jared Allen, who could still get on top of their salaries. But no, really, on the Nets, that's fine. I'll pass.
S. Rand asking a very esoteric question. Favorite tourney play for minimum salary or up to 3,200? If one exists, he says. So yeah, he's giving you a no. I like cheap guys. I have nobody that cheap on tonight on DK.
You can Baines in the matchup. I don't love it, but in a tournament, I wouldn't immediately dismiss it as a strict error. Don't want a Kufis or a Mir in those spots. There's always TJ Leaf. I'm kidding. Don't possibly do that.
Your favorite.
Don't. That's the
Preseason
wrong
hero, TJ Leaf.
That's the wrong M. Plumlee, by the way, unfortunately. We may be shit out of luck here. After that, it would be Satoransky at 3K. Yeah, this is more time than we should spend on this question. So, yeah, I will. You know, it's Austin Rivers, Satoransky, or Aaron Baines. Probably Baines for me, and then after that, Rivers. But yeah, feel free not to.
Someone in the YouTube is saying that Tyler Johnson is out, which I'm not seeing. So please don't. No fake news. Fake news gets you banned from the channel. So don't do that.
It should. That's
so you take a warning. Go sit in the corner with a dunce cap, Eric 5858. But I won't ban you fully because for some reason I'm feeling generous today, and I am never feeling generous.
And we're busy.
Let's see. Would you go Bob Covington or Joe Ingles on either site for Drum 4-3?
Bob Co for me. I do like the matchup for him. The way they guard him specifically opens up a lot of threes for him, and that's all it really takes. And I avoided making this commentary before the first game of this year because, again, the presence of Brago and the absence of D12 I didn't think would necessarily carry over, but was, again, very good against Charlotte first game this year, and I think the ownership is pretty sexy. So I like both those guys, but I'm a little more excited about playing Bob Co.
Would you go Paul Millsap or Otto Porter in a head-to-head matchup?
Still Millsap.
For DK Cash, would you go Robert Covington, Taj and De'Aaron Fox, or Buddy Hield, Trey Lyles, and Taurean Prince?
The first one.
Let's see. Late tuning in. Any Bayward thoughts with his return to Utah? Would you play? How are you feeling about him?
Yeah, fine in tournaments. Not the worst thing in cash. Like, he's gonna, like, his usage should come up without Kyrie. You would think he'd try to put on some sort of show for the fans. I do think, there is some narrative for that being a nice moment. So I like him a fair bit. I don't think he's gonna hurt you too bad. I do think there's an upside, and he's a fun guy to play tonight. So yeah, Gordon works for me.
Let's see. Bullock or Ellington? Would you have any Bullock interest, especially as a pivot to Ellington?
No. I think there are just other guys who are more likely to get there. I don't think I would actually run any. I don't know if he was right on the line of someone I would have a share of in 150 lineup. So I can't remember entirely if at the time I put in the last update if he got expurgated or if I left him in there. It's not insane. He can do steals. He can do threes. But I guess you just look at the matchup and you look for those fringe pieces. So I get Glenn Robinson III. I left him in there. I get Glenn Robinson III. I get Bullock. So, sure. I guess my answer would be he's a reasonable pivot in tournaments, especially with the Tyreek hole closing up and not needing to slam quite so much of that in there. He's not even 100% healthy, but sure. I think Bullock and Glenn Robinson III can be in your player pool.
Would you go Favors, Gibson, or Jaylen Brown for DK Cash?
Those are all close for me. I'll take Taj.
Okay. Would you go Ed Davis and J. Rich, or Winslow and Lyles?
Lyles is interesting in that spot. I'll go with the second one.
Okay. Let's see. Any Vucevic thoughts? I think you touched on it a little bit, but we're getting Vucevic and Whiteside questions right now. So give your Vucevic take one more time.
Yeah, basically Vuce is difficult to track this year. He has put up some big games in tough spots and some stinkers in spots that were historically very good for him. I do think his ability to take over a game is real, but I think the position, just more naturally flows towards an Aaron Gordon game, and they tend to be an either-or type situation. So I don't have a problem with Vooch in tournaments because center is so stacked that you get him at 3% owned, and he puts up 60 tonight. I'm not shocked because he's done it in tough spots previously. But I would be a little more excited about playing Whiteside. You're going to get Whiteside at 15% as opposed to 4%, but he still does have a massive upside here. So site dependent, obviously, on the ownership. But
all right. A couple quick ones that we'll do Daddy Like because the people demand Daddy Like. I want to know what Daddy likes. Taj or Sarek for DK Cash?
Taj.
Taj or Millsap, who has more raw points?
I'll take Millsap. I have them projected within a half point last time I looked. I can't remember who it was, but I think Millsap is just barely a hair better. So if you have the extra $200, I don't have a problem playing him in any format. But There's still some uncertainty there, too. That game could blow out. You only get 22 minutes, blah, blah, blah. But I think I generally have to like Millsap just a hair more.
I got Taj at 34.4 on DraftKings, so you can mark it down.
Wow. That is a big number. 25.8 here, and I felt like I was high.
No, I didn't feel like I wanted to adjust Taj because I'm buying into his numbers this year, and I think a pace matchup I think was the deal breaker for me. Where if it had been like versus the Heat or the Pacers, I would jump off there.
Yeah, I like Taj quite a bit. I like both those guys. I mean, they're fine 5K plays. I think they're very, very close to each other.
Yeah, my projections is a little higher because they account for pace ups and all that, so that would be part of the reason why. If he gets 34.4, though, everybody just hail me as a genius and my projections. But let's do Daddy Like. What is Eddie, tell us what Daddy likes this week.
Yeah, I've had a few of those where like I threw out numbers and they were exactly right. Like there were like 3 last year where I was like, I think there's a real chance Clay scores 60 tonight, and he scored exactly 60. That happened once, and there was just some weird happenstance that were like that. All right, well, take a look at the DK ownership on the a 425K zone.
Oh, that is the $5 tournament on DK with a 100K prize up top.
There you go. We had someone win 100K.
I'm in that one, guys.
Let's do there's new fantasy alarm news at 1 second after. Oh, it's just a lineup. Nothing weird happened. But I was waiting for that to be, just Aaron Gordon has a hangnail or whatever. Like I was waiting for one of those to come. I do think there's something hooey coming. All right, ownership. Higher than I would have thought. So number one guy on the early 2 games. Or 2 early games. Am I getting that right?
Sounds about right.
I think there's 2 early games. Anyway. Number one ownership. Wow, that guy was higher than I thought he would be too. So everyone was higher owned than I thought, which seems like it should be impossible. Some lower owns must be coming. Dwight Howard, 27%. It's a little higher than I would have thought on DraftKings. I'm still fine with that. Again, large slates, one of the nice things is, and this is something that sort of doesn't get talked about a lot, is there's this weird super fluidity between taking tournament plays and cash plays as you get on larger slates. Because as you get on giant slates, there's usually only like 3 guys that are ridiculously cash. And the value of being contrarian should be directly proportional to the percentage of the field you are passing, not the ownership. And what I mean by that is a guy who is 20% owned is not half as good as a guy who is 10% owned. I hear that a lot just looking at their ownership, and that's not actually accurate. You go from passing 80% of the field when he does well to passing 90% of the field when he does well, which is nice. You want that extra 10%, but passing 80% of players is just fine. So you get a slate this large, even when the chalkiest guy in these early games is Dwight Howard. He's 27% owned. If he has a big game, you're still getting over on 3/4 of the field. So that should still feel pretty good. And then you get on small slates where a lot of the things you have to figure out is, okay, everyone will be chalkier sort of by reference. So how far down do you move your line of acceptable plays to get guys who are single digits owned without playing guys who are just shit? Is sort of where that comes down. But Aaron Gordon, 16%. Robert Covington, 16%. That's higher than I would have thought on Covington. I thought we would have got him closer to 10. Darius Saric, 15%. That's fine. Finally looked good last game. I mean, that was his best game, and he shot okay, and we still didn't quite get 30 out of him, so I don't want to overreact to that. Drinks on me if you win this 10K. Okay, that's a deal. I accept drinks. I accept frequently. I've had probably, I don't know, maybe 15 times over the last 5 years, somebody won, 5 or 6 digits in money and said, hey, can I tip you? And I said, no, but we can donate to a charity. So we do that a lot. So if you win, 10, 50, 100K and want to donate to a non-white nationalist charity, give me a call, because that happened once. And I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to donate to that charity. Otto Porter Jr., 14%. Again, almost exactly what I said. I think I said today is going to be 15. Last time it was like 5. I'll wait for him to come back to 5. John Wall, 12%. Daddy likes. There is a big ceiling game there. I think he generally does trend up. I don't think this team gets amazing, but I do think they become less shitty than they have been. I do think Dwight is a stabilizing force, and which is not words you think you would ever say, but I do think that it allows the team to be more competitive more often. Vooch at 10, again, higher than I thought. I thought you would have got 4 or 5% Vooch. At 10, I probably would have wanted to look elsewhere. Redick at 8, Fournier at 8, Beal at 8, Augustine at nearly 8. Seems oddly high.
We saw that last good game. He's had 2 out of 3. I think they were pretty good.
Yeah, no, he's put up a couple decent lines, but again, that makes me want him less in tournaments. Like he's the same guy. He goes out there and you're gonna get you 15. Decent game gets you 25. Has a really strong game, you randomly get 35 out of him. That's who he was last week, and you could have gotten him at 3% owned, and then he does it a couple times, which now makes him 8% owned, and I don't know. I'd like him less under that scenario. Bradley Beal, we already did 8%. Embiid, 6.5%. Right. So, I mean, that was the thing. Like, he was wicked expensive. If he puts up 75, you're going to feel pretty good at that number. Ben Simmons, 6%, I think is glorious. I like that much more than I like Embiid. Like, I project Embiid for 3 more fantasy points or something. This is a really good spot for Ben Simmons and his ownership.
Hold on, wait, Eddie, before you continue. JB, Eddie, you are not saying Daddy likes enough. Please start or end a thought with Daddy likes. Come on now.
Daddy loves Ben Simmons. He's young. He's got muscly arms.
He's got a very boyish face, too.
You can take your shirt off if you want. Kemba Walker, 5.5%. Hard not to like that in that spot.
Wait, but does Daddy like it, or is it just hard not to like that?
Yes, Daddy is hard to like that. Terrence Ross, 4%. Daddy is ambivalent. Marvin Williams, 2%.
Daddy's ambivalent, a much less popular version of
the sequel, the spinoff, starring Scott Baio. Daddy is ambivalent. Jeremy Lamb, 1.6%. Daddy likes. Markieff Morris, 1.6%. Daddy likes. Nick Batum, 1.5%. Daddy likes quite a bit. He's French, Guillermo Hernan Gomez, 1.43%. Daddy likes. You're looking at, Embiid getting some guys in foul trouble, but certainly fractious and frenetic, but could certainly get there. Fultz, 1.4%. Sure, Daddy likes Fultz at that number. Miles Bridges, 0.8. I don't know about that. Malik Monk, Daddy like at 0.7. Cody Zeller, Daddy like at 0.7. Kelly Oubre, Daddy like at 0.6. Tony Parker, Daddy likes at 0.5. Those guys are fine at those numbers. Mo Bamba, Daddy likes at 0.5%. Jonathan Simmons, I think I'd still pass on at 0.5%. Daddy doesn't like John. Jerry and Grant, no thank you. Jeff Green, no. Landry Shamet, no. There's Austin Rivers for you. So there you go. Maybe there's 0.35%. Maybe that's that guy who had that 3,200 to spend a minute ago. Wilson Chandler, 0.14. It feels like the absolute minimum. 15 minutes, maybe. We're getting there. Wes Iwundu, 0.09. That's hilarious how bad he is at fantasy basketball.
Very big, not good.
Amir, 0.08. Jarrell Martin, 0.05. Jason Smith, 0.05. TJ McConnell, 0.04. Tomas Satoransky, 0.04. Jan Mahinmi, 0.02. Bismack Biyombo, 0.01. Kem Birch, 0.01. Troy Brown, 0.01. Thomas Bryant, 0.01. Devin Robinson, 0.01. Frank Kaminsky, double odds, but 1 vote, I presume, which rounds down to less than 1/100%. And then finally, Jonathan Isaac, 0.00, but he's listed, so I believe that means that you, one person, played yourself.
Oh, there we go. I appreciate the people wanting the unhealthiest man in the league to get in the game last minute, but no, he is out, Jonathan Isaac.
Yep, no, he's which is a shame because I like his game. He's strong defender, interesting fantasy guy. So would like to think that he brings it around, but he's going full Grant Hill style. Victor Oladipo says he'll play. Oh, well, there you go.
There you go. I take him. He's a man of his word to me, I think.
He is. He apparently has an excellent singing voice, but he tried to do New York at that one slam dunk contest, and I mean, it is really difficult to find your pitch without like a monitor in front of a crowd. Like there's, if you've ever done it, generally like I have an earpiece in or something because it's really hard to hear yourself. And then when you get the echo in a large arena, it's really hard to pace because everything is bouncing a couple times. So you try to sing along with the music, and when you start to sing along with it, because of the distance everything is traveling, you end up being a half step behind it again, and it can go really wonky, and that's what happened to him. I felt bad for him. As a fellow performer, he went out and started singing at the slam dunk contest, and you could tell he was like, oh shit, this is different with 50,000 people in here. I can't hear anything. Oh God. So I felt legit bad for him in that spot because
I agree. I did too.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything we need more of in the slam dunk competition, it's singing.
Twism on YouTube asking, does Eddie do any other notable impressions?
I do a lot of impressions.
What's your other strong one? Because the Herbert from Family Guy one, I've said strong as you'll find the DFS industry, bar none.
Okay, off the top of my head, I'm not at all warmed up enough for this. This is how you tear a vocal cord, but I do a fairly strong Elmo. Which is, so I used to play a lot of MMORPGs.
What a pairing, Elmo and Herbert.
Oh yeah, they can have a conversation together. It was actually something I wanted to do for football this year. It didn't happen, but I wanted to do a show every week, which was going to be my first impressions of this weekend's games, and then just do a lot of split screen, me talking to me as Yoda or Elmo or Gollum or Jar Jar Binks or, and anyway, Elmo is Elmo loves, you know.
Wow, that is a good one. I got to admit, it sounded like a toy.
And then there's Yoda and Grover, both voiced by Frank Oz, so they're low and high, where Yoda is like, mine, or I will help you not. No. So Yoda's there, and then you just bring it up like an octave, and you get Grover is like, Super Grover! Near?
Are you taking requests? Lacey wants you to do Jack Nicholson.
I don't have that. I don't have that club in the bag. It's just draw
hey,
and
I'm Jack
your
Nicholson.
eyebrows and but I don't have Jack Nicholson. I'm trying to think of other ones.
There are children in Eddie's closet in the mall.
Yes. Jar Jar Binks is going like, Miss Jar Jar Binks. You saw people gonna die? Like, so there's Jar Jar. Is a pretty good.
It's a lot of back of throat guys. I feel like you have, which I'm impressed by, but it's
sorry.
It's an interesting.
All I heard was the back of my throat and guys, and I got distracted for a second there. I'm trying to think. I used to have like 20 or 30. It was a thing. This and stand-up comedy were backup careers 7 and 8 because I don't like doing the same thing for more than about 5 years at a stretch. So, who else do we have in the bag? I'm trying to. I also in that Yoda Grover thing is the orcs from World of Warcraft are sort of the third triumvirate there. And again, I managed to work for Blizzard Entertainment for about 4 years and on their licensed properties for about another 3. But there's they're destroying our city. Played any who wants to sing?
Is that an ogre? It's a very believable ogre, if so.
It's an orc. But
okay, fair enough. Similar, right? Orcs and ogres.
Related.
Yeah,
ogres.
Like I don't want to be racist to the orcs or the ogres.
There were two-headed ogres in the game who they would talk to each other. So then when you produced them, when they came out of your barracks, they'd be like, "I'm ready. I'm not ready." It was a whole thing. There were goblins in that game too. They were like, "Yay! I can see my house! Kaboom!"
It's a good goblin. As far as I know goblins, that sounds like a goblin.
All right. Well, we're doing good. So yeah, at some point we will, I did so we did a very lightly watched because Evan Silva's computer kept breaking, but the weekend before last we did a football show leading up to Football Lock, which involved a segment with me doing impressions where I did an impression where I was an NFL football player voiced by someone else. So I did, let's see, I was Geronimo Allison, voiced by Herbert the Pervert, talking about Aaron Rodgers' muscly arms. That was fun. And then I did Nick Chubb as Elmo, where I was like, I had the ball, I was running, and we did that for a while. And then there were a couple others. So that was fun. But yeah, I got to work on it.
No, that was good. That was perfectly appropriate for a Friday. We got to see some of Eddie's Rolodex of impressions. One last plug before we go. Make sure you use that live before lock code. There's more impressions behind that paywall, I'm sure. But also ownership projections from Osmo, the top DFS player in the world, rankings, Eddie's rankings, which he labors for you all in between doing his impressions. Yeah. So go check that out. Promo code live before lock will get you 1 week free. It's great. It's simply the best. And I say that as a completely unbiased party who's not at all paid as a result of this. Go. I'm Jack Nicholson. No, actually, I'm Batman. There we go. That's my impression. Nailed it.
I don't have him. Yeah, Scooby is tough because the laugh is a whole nother thing. Like, a lot of characters have these distinctive laughs. So if you're doing Yoda, you have to be like, and the voice is a lot easier on Scooby-Doo because it's just like, Rice Maggie. But then the laugh, you have to do this weird scale thing where he's like,
he's like a horse laugh. I always like Scooby-Doo, and he's one of my favorite cartoon characters because, he just hung out with his buddy and got stoned and ate food. I feel like I represent everything that's all about.
Yeah.
laugh very horse-like, very like a neigh.
Yeah, it's very good. Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
And he's big. He's a Great Dane, so I get it. This thin line between Great Danes and horses. I also love my horse in Red Dead Redemption and pet him as much as I do my dogs. So
I have never played that, and I really need to, so I can then get into the second one.
You would lose yourself. It's so immersive.
I know,
and, like in ways that are like fun but bizarre.
Love the company. One of those few companies where if they called me, were like, "Hey, you want us to work for us?" I'd be like, "All right, sorry, Osmo, I gotta go." They give me like it's.
Hey, me too. If they want our great voice work on their next game, you know where to find us.
I have a demo reel, which like I haven't sent, but I handed I was one of the guys who when I was working at Blizzard, if there was an issue with like, oh, we just need a voice real quick for this, I could run down there and lay down a quick track of whatever the hell, and I haven't sent it around in a while, but yeah, definitely one of those things as I get older. If my voice holds up, like it's much harder to do a lot of those voices than it used to be.
People need to. Spags is high as hell. To be clear, I'm never high on these shows, and because I people on the other day too.
T-minus 90 seconds. Like here we go.
No,
start a stopwatch for Spags being high as hell. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, it won't be far away. But no, I encourage it because it's fun. I like when we do fun, silly things. We have to do so much news and content that's related to like people being degenerates.
Yeah, I wish I had 4 hours a day for shows. I really do. Lots of stuff I want to do, want to hit other guys, want to talk about a guy, but like when I'm like, let's go game by game, we always end up short on time because when I talk about everything I want to say about a game, it takes 8 minutes a game talking as fast as I can, and that sucks for a number of reasons. The late games, which are frequently the better one, get less attention than they should. You, who have a lot of valuable content to add, don't get to say anything because I'm talking for 8 minutes about every game. By the time I get done, you're like, well, there's no time for my shit. So it's yeah, it's not ideal in a number of ways. So it's always tough to know. So like, yeah, I can't do impressions at 7:15. We just don't have time for that shit.
But hey, we try to have fun here, so that's what it's all about. Also, Ashley McDaniel in the chat, kudos to you for being the woman here, but also being smart. Ashley's been asking smart questions on a bunch of the shows and saying stuff, and she's apparently playing Red Dead too. So good for you, Ashley. Not hitting on you, but just want to applaud the women who are brave enough to stick through all this bullshit and testosterone.
It's such we have obviously Celia late of FanVice, and there's a few women in the industry who, God bless them, dealing with all that bullshit.
Yes, yeah, friendly. Here's to you, ladies. It's all for you. Though House of Cards with what's her face president not doing it for me. So I'm sorry, ladies.
With it's Claire Hale Underwood or Robin Wright. I don't know whether you were looking for actress or character, but she's tremendous. But the writing in that show has trailed off a fair amount, and it's I mean, whenever you take Kevin Spacey away from anything, it's gonna get worse. Like, it
just didn't need to exist. I get why they wanted to do it, but it's a sad way for one of the early Netflix shows to go out. But whatever, maybe it's good. I'll stick with it. All right, that's enough. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe, throw us a like. You know, the likes really define our value as human beings, so please give us that. Otherwise we'll just be hanging from something. But yeah, any parting words for the folks before you'll be on tomorrow, so you have a little more, but anything for this business week?
I will be. Nope, back tomorrow. Might take Sunday off this week. Didn't last week. Did an impromptu, but good luck, everybody. Hopefully it's half as good as last night. Last night was really exceptional. Congrats again to all the big winners last night. Let's do it again tonight.
There you go. So good luck, everybody, and I'll see you guys again soon. Good luck. Okay, I said good luck like 5 times.
Yeah.
Good luck 5 times.
All right, I'm just gonna leave the stream going for a while.
Oh, cool. Yeah, that's what we want.
This way, if you get high, you get in trouble.
No, I'm off hours now, except I'm not because I get to work tomorrow and Sunday too.
Really?
Yeah. Woo.
Winslow is not a point guard. People being like, how can you not like Winslow? He's starting a point guard and to play 35 minutes. I'm like, he's not starting a point guard in any meaningful, like, I don't know if that's where they randomly put him on the box, but everybody brings the ball up with the starting 5 they run for that team. Like, they start Ellington, Winslow, Richardson, and Magruder. They all bring the ball up sometimes. Jay Rich more than anyone else. So like, I like Winslow fine at a price in the mid 5s, and he can pick up steals and blocks, and he can like that's fine. By all means, play him, but he's not playing 35 minutes of point guard. That's not doing anything.
I agree. I think the Winslow loves the lookers. Are we still on, by the way?
Yeah, we are. We're still going.
Oh, okay.